what's the difference between producing for brands and companies compared to producing for TV or film?
Gotta be careful in case my clients see this. My name is Juve Dunn. I am a producer and a director at Dunn Media. We're a production media company. We specialize also in film, television, and brand videos and various other content-related work. Creativity is you can't find it in a book. It really can't be taught. It can be nurtured, but I don't know if it can be taught. But I think for me, the creative process comes from being a study of culture. I think you live in it. I just think that we all have it. I mean, it's like a comedian. Like, they study your culture, they study, and they kind of place a mirror up to it. And I think that with me, the older you get, the more involved you get in the industry. I think research is one of the biggest things. I think that a lot of time you're talking about whatever you're talking about, whether you're doing reality television, whether you're doing film, whether you're doing a narrative show, or just ads, right? Research is fundamental to all the disciplines, basically because you need to understand what you're talking about. And you can't know everything, right? And also, the more you're informed, the more you're able to do something better, right? And for us, the creative process, I think I trust my creative process. I always try to push it. Sometimes it doesn't work because some people say we live more in a conservative country. But I think for me is that I try to understand the cultures I'm talking to, the market that I'm talking to, and then I try to find research around, and then I try to find things that will attract them, draw them in, entertain them, intrigue them, keep them glued to their screens and stuff like that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we've had a good success rate, so it's been working. But yeah. I think some of them are going to sound cliched, but they're cliched because they're obviously work. So first of all, I'm going to say hard work, right? And I think that it's misunderstood when people say hard work, because it's something that people just say off the top of their head. But it is fundamental to have an impeccable work ethic, especially if you're in this industry. I think any industry, but if you want to be the best, if you want to succeed in this industry, work ethic is fundamental. The reason being is that as you develop in the industry, you're going to meet certain pitfalls. You're going to work with different people. I always say to people that work for us and stuff is that there's always been somebody smarter than you, prettier than you, more good looking, funnier than you, but no one should outwork you. That is the one thing, the one principle that I stand by, is that there might be more talented than me in many things, but they're not going to outwork me, you know? I think passion is important because it keeps you inspired, it keeps you driven. There's those days when you're working 24-hour, 48-hour shifts, like I'm going to work this week, and you are running on energy, but there's a certain exhilaration that your job gives you, and you feel like there's a purpose to it, you know? So I think passion is fundamental to it. I think perseverance is another thing. I think a lot of people, they're always looking for yeses, and when you don't get a yes, it disheartens you. You lose your focus and stuff. And for me, that's a mistake. I think that you need to go through life understanding that not everything you do is going to be met with applause and a yes, right? Sometimes you have an amazing idea, and this has happened to us throughout our whole career. I've pitched amazing ideas. I'm like, what? This is an amazing idea. And it's scary because they end up becoming amazing ideas. We pitched a show 3 years ago, for example. We pitched a show to a channel, and they were like, nah, I don't think it's gonna work. We're like, it worked. There's a kind of show like this in the States. They're like, nah, it's not gonna work, right? 2 years later, there's like 5 variations of the show on every single channel. Do you understand? And it looked so. Sometimes I look at it, I'm like, was I wrong the idea, but I clearly wasn't, because they've obviously created variants of that show. It may be because I didn't sell the show, maybe because I wasn't good at pitching the show, maybe it just wasn't the right time. But does that stop me from now pursuing other shows, other ideas and stuff like that? And I think that's where I've seen a lot of young people get disheartened, lose focus, because they got a lot of no's. And I just say, my business partner and I, we went into this industry just the idea that everyone was going to hate everything we do, everything was going to say no, but we're going to wait for the one maybe and keep working, perseverance. So perseverance is fundamental, and I think that if I had to tell any young person, is that never give up. It's much easier to give up, and sometimes you learn so much from failure that you don't even realize that by the end of it you're like, wow, actually I know so much more now because I went through that path. Another key aspect of it is research. Like I said, one of the previous ones, I think that I'm just saying things that I say to our people who work for us, is that research, you need to understand it, you need to respect the stories you're telling, whether it be on whatever medium, whether it be on film, whether it be on TV, whether it be on YouTube. Respect the audience and acknowledge the story that you're telling, because if you don't have enough research, you will get found out. You will either, somebody else will know more about you, or in a weird way, I think just show respect to the story you're telling. Enjoy it. I think that's also, I think that it's hard work, there's passion, there's perseverance, but I think that you need to enjoy it, because being in the film and TV industry, I think throughout the world, it's challenging. I've been to the States and stuff like that, and I see it. They obviously have more money and it's bigger, but they still have the same kind of struggles. You know what I mean? They're still struggling with deadlines, editing machines. They have the same struggles that you have. They obviously just maybe have more money to deal with them. But enjoy it, love it, enjoy it, because when you do get it right, and when you are, it's one of those jobs that you get to choose. And when you do get to do it, it's so gratifying and so fulfilling that you can't explain. Just telling stories you're a part of history. We always say that as filmmakers, we're not the guys who build the walls or build the buildings in this world, but we are the people who shed color. Okay, so the difference between making content for brands versus making content for television. I think basically it also depends on the client, right? Obviously with TV, the people that you're dealing with from a channel point of view understand what you're doing. They understand that what TX is, they work closely with your budgets. It's a longer project most of the time, right? Working with brands is a lot more shorter. The deadlines are intense. The demand, in many ways, I think with brands is much higher, because they're very careful, very meticulous about what they're saying and their iconography and the fact that they don't want to be misrepresented, right? And in a weird way, they demand a higher level of quality. At our company, we try and create a level where we call it the well done level. We don't really see like this is a higher level, this is a lower level. We try and do our best for every single client, every single thing is what we do. But I think that with brands, obviously, they don't really understand, a lot of times they don't understand the process of creating something, right? So you've got to be a lot more structured in how you communicate and your deliverables and how you deliver, right? Obviously with brands, it's a lot more short form content, whereas television is a lot longer form content, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending whether it's reality or it's a drama series. A drama series, of course, is a lot more strenuous. I mean, that's like, what, 6 months of work, hours on set and stuff like that. Reality, also strenuous, but a lot faster, a lot easier to produce and stuff like that there. With brands, I just think that you've got to be a bit more, you can have a bit more attention to detail, because they stress a lot more about everything that's put onto frame and everything that's said about their brand, and they worry about their consumers. You see, I think with television, you worry about entertaining someone, whereas I guess brands is more informative, you know. But I think that with us especially, I can't speak for every single other company, but with us especially, we try and, like I said, we try and make sure that there's an attention to detail to every single, whether it be a brand work, whether it be work for television, whether it be a film. But I would have to take you through the process of actually the deliverables are different, the deadlines are very different. TV is a lot more fast-paced, very, very fast-paced, TX dates. Like a channel say, this is a TX, this is when we're TXing the episode. You don't have to be like, okay, we're TXing the episode. I feel like there's a lot more moving parts. Sometimes doing brand work, content, ads, stuff like that, it's a bit more structured because there's a lot more pre-production. They give a lot more time to pre-production. And yeah, the process of deliverables, it's a bit more structured in a weird way. Content for online advertising. Yeah. I think, you know, I mean, if you, I'm not an advertising person, right? But I think if you go and speak to an advertising person, they'll tell you just in advertising the different types of ads that they are, right? There's consumer ads, there's brand ads, there's, I can't remember all that. I remember some people have told me about this stuff, but basically, content. Okay, so obviously there's a growth for content online, especially I mean, the rest of the world picked up a long time ago, but South Africa's slowly picking it up now. You see a lot more YouTube shows, you see a lot more brands jumping onto YouTube shows now, you see them creating content for YouTube. I think it's because people brands starting to realize that people are naturally gravitating away from the normal way of watching television, which was how we grew up, which is like, you knew a show was at 8 o'clock, you knew that I have to be at 8 o'clock, there's no catch up, you know what I mean? I can't stream it, things like that. So I think that brands are starting to realize that people want content when they want it, right? And they are absorbing content differently than they did in the past. So they're watching on their phones, they're watching on tablets, they're watching on their computers, right? And I think that brands are realizing that they need to connect with those people outside of terrestrial normal television, right? It's not about, and I think that's the best way to say this, it's not about this is right and that's wrong. It's about you have to find the consumer wherever they are and the audience wherever they are. So if you're a channel, if you're a brand, if they're gravitating towards Netflix and creating content like that online, you've got to create content for them. That's where they're going. And you've got to make sure that you're always ahead of your audience or with them in many ways. For us, pre-production is everything. We stress it more than anything else because it solves so many problems. Like, you shouldn't be coming up with stuff on the day, right? There are sometimes where you, oh, I didn't see this, whatever, there'll be moments. But what pre-production makes you better at is makes you better at planning. It makes you better at understanding curveballs when they might happen. And also, you need to realize that you're working as a team, right? Pre-production will probably, if you have great pre-production, you'll have a great post-production. Your editor will understand what they need to make at the end of the day. Everybody on the same page. And I think a lot of times, directors, producers don't do great pre-production. Then they get upset at their team for not executing the job effectively, not realizing that you're giving way too much power to those people to make decisions, whereas you should have created the creative treatment first so people understand the process of what they're creating. And I think that for us, the biggest thing I can tell to any filmmaker, anybody actually, whether you're a sound guy, whether you're a director, whether you're a writer, producer, whatever, right? And I learned this, not in school, but throughout working, is that you need to understand and respect each discipline that it takes to be able to make something. What I mean by that is that a lot of times people work in isolation. So a producer will look at an editor and go, oh God, he's so incompetent, why does he do this here, right? But you need to understand what it takes for an editor to be able to produce great work, right? You understand from a director. For example, like I don't use cameras. I don't use cameras, I don't do sound, right? But I've out-debated a cameraman on why we need to use a certain camera. Just basically because I understood his discipline. I don't understand his camera, but I understood the limitations from like why, if we're shooting in LA, why we shouldn't shoot with this camera because we're running gunning for sound. Like I had to have the debate, and I won the debate versus a cameraman, and only because I respected his world. I tried to understand it, understand what he needs. And I think the mistake that anybody could make is thinking that they are the best in their process when you're not, because you can have a great writer, a great producer, a great director, a great cinematographer, a bad editor, and in the day the film is bad. And vice versa, you can have a great editor, great director, great producer, bad cinematographer, and then the visuals, you know what I mean? So you need to understand that and respect its collaborative effort. You are no more important than the gaffer, than the sound guy, than the person, the runner, right? Because it takes a team to produce great content, be it a film, be it TV, and you've got to respect each other in that process. It's not about I'm better than that person, but there is no such thing. We're all equal. We're all trying to create the same thing, great work, and I think that's important. So I always say that like I try not to give advice that I haven't lived through, because I just feel like if I'm going to give some advice to someone, I need to know that I've been through this process. I can't tell you how other people have done it. I can only tell you how I have done it, right? So I start, like, my business partner and I actually wish he was here to tell you the story, because when we started, right, how we started our iShip business was we started an online show, right? This is before everyone had an online show. We knew, we're like, YouTube was still something, there was, people were darted, there was no internet, was still, I think there was still like, those dial-up lines, there was no ADSL kind of thing. So we started a YouTube show. It was about movies and stuff like that there. We had no budget. We didn't know how to edit, right? I had an iPhone 3, iPhone 4. We used to shoot the show, it was like a panel talk show. We shot on an iPhone 4. We recorded sound on an iPhone 3, right? We edited on like a MacBook that was 8 years old at the time. I think it had like half a gig of RAM. Right? And it never stopped us. A year after that, brands were sending us overseas to shoot junkets and all that kind of stuff. And I think the story behind that isn't about congratulating myself, but more about the fact that, like, the only reason we were able to get that far, and we had like one of the biggest mediums, but then our business grew and had to leave it. We're bringing it back, but we had to leave it a little bit. Was that we had a lot of people around us who said you can't do it, that doesn't make sense, whatever, right? And I think that we had a vision, and I think that's that's another point I actually should make, is they have a vision. We had a vision of creating something, and I'm saying this because you're never gonna have enough money, no matter how big you get, right? You're never gonna have enough time, right? You've got to make it work, and you've still got to do the best you can, right? And I think that we, especially now, when I see young filmmakers give me excuses why they can't do something, in the world that you live in now, that's crazy, because they've made it so easy to create content these days. I mean, like, you can download software now to do basic editing, right? You can shoot on your phones are shooting at 4K, right? There's no reason you shouldn't be telling me that you can't do something, right? So for me as a young filmmaker is that you've got to, one, right, understand the story that you're telling, right? But the most important thing that we learned, right, and something that we never learned in school, is the business of the industry, right? And that is, in a weird way, a bigger problem across the board in our industry. We're still a bit naive in terms of how we approach the industry. We still attach too much passion to it and not enough logical thinking and business acumen to it. We don't understand that at the end of the day, it is a business. It's show business. We think about the show, not the business. I'm sure you've heard that before. So as a young filmmaker, right, the nice thing about being young is that you have less things to worry about. In a weird way, yes, I know you want to be millionaires, all that kind of stuff, but your job is to focus on your craft. Try to get better. Try to understand whatever medium, whatever discipline you're going into, whether you're sound, whether you're cameraman, whether you're producer. Do as much, work as much, right? And put everything into it that you're able to understand that. I think it's a tough one because we just hustled. We spoke to people. we never lied to people. I think that whenever I never oversold anything, I would tell people straight. I'm like, listen, there's no money in this year. Would you willing to help us out? But I think a lot of times people worked with us because they saw how passionate we were about it. They saw that we weren't playing around. They weren't just trying to be cool. That we love what we were doing. And so there's a lot of people that got us here. They didn't get paid, but they got us as far as we are right now because they helped us along the way. They saw the passion in us. Feed people, that's always a good thing. I think that a lot of times, I think one of the secrets to making anything for free is feed people. Try to find money to feed people because you don't hungry people on set. But yeah, man, I think that it's so weird because obviously I don't need to make like content on phones anymore. But I think that especially now for young filmmakers, you have everything at your disposal, like everything at your disposal. I look at, like I said, I look at our young film, like people now, they complain, I didn't have this, and I was like, yo, man, like you have no idea. And the thing that I realize is that those struggles and that perseverance that I had to go through, right, made me better today because it made me realize there are no excuses, that there are no excuses. There's no excuses why you can't do something. You understand? So, but yeah, man, I think that as a young person, like, I can't even express you, man, just focus and work it. Like, maybe you'll lose friends, maybe you'll lose whatever, but people who believe in you will always be there with you and will stick by you. And just put everything into it. I always say to young people, man, like, you're wasting time. And what I mean by that is that every day that you're messing around and not working on your craft, whatever, you're wasting time. You really are. Like, you're wasting time to get better. There's other people out there working harder than you. Put everything into it and try and be the best.